So we have just chain stitched all of our blocks, and we are at the ironing board, and we're going to cut these all apart. And cut them apart and be very careful when you do this. There you go. So get these all cut apart, and then we're going to press them. Okay, so now what I have done is I starched these very quickly, and I press them. When you're pressing triangles out, you really want to be careful to make sure that it's not creased anywhere. You don't want to stretch it, but you do want to make sure that it's nice and flat. Okay. Now when you're doing this, and I'll show you with this one. So this square is going to go here per the design. Okay, so you have your design laying in front of you, and I haven't pressed this yet. Okay, so I'm just going to finger flatten it out, and the same with this. I'm going to finger flatten that out, and then I'm going to look and see if I press it and I starch it, is it going to, are the seams going to be opposite? And you could see the way that I had first done that, because I pushed it out like this. They were not going to be opposite. You want them opposite because you want your block to be flat. Okay, so if I have this one like this, and I bring this one over, I need to make sure that I iron the seam the other way. And another reason for this is we want these seams right here to line up. And that's what keeps your lines nice and straight. So we want those to line up right in there. We are not going for perfection, okay? I need to tell you that. Don't be so disappointed if your points accidentally get cut off. Sometimes we can accidentally cut our points off. Don't be upset. You just keep practicing. Happens to everybody. You still have a pretty quilt. Okay, so now let me look at that again. Here we go. So we don't want to do that. That's what natural tells me to do, right? Because it just seems like it lays better that way. And it really can't go that way, because we need those seams to be opposite of one another if we're matching seams up. So we really want to just get our starch on there. And again, I use best press starch, and we'll just do that so we know that that has to be ironed out nice and flat. Make sure that none is more than 1/4 of an inch over. You don't want to do that. Nice and flat. And I love starching my blocks. They get nice and crisp, so you don't have to work too much. I'm looking at the design here. It still doesn't go that way. Okay, there we go. Okay, now while you have these sitting here, you're going to pin it. Okay, now I want you to see, can we see this up close? Can we get a little closer? Do you think? Let's see. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line those seams up. Do you see that? And that is where we are going to pin it. So right there, you have lined the seam up. It's nice and straight, your block is. And you're looking, now some cut off their points before they sew, right after they open up their triangle. I don't. It's not a good idea. You need them to feed your fabric in. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to pin it right on the seam. Okay, so I want those seams to line up. I want my seams to be opposite, and I'm going to pin it right on that line, just like that. Okay. Now my seams are pinned right there. Let me make sure. And you have to keep checking. Okay. So there, my little seam is pinned up there. Okay. And then I'm going to pin, of course, the side that I sew. Make sure that you're trying to keep your blocks nice and square. I'm going to pin the side that I'm going to sew. You're going to do the same thing to this block up here, except this one, your seams are down. And what I would do before you turn that around to try and pin that seam so it stays nice and straight, I would just put a pin there so you know that's the side that you're going to sew. And then I want those seams to line up. I want my blocks to be flat on top of each other. If you're a little bit off, you know, you can give it a little stretch. I've done that before. That is one way we can fix major boo-boos. Just give it a little stretch. We are not going for perfection. And then pin that seam. There. Okay. Now that's ready to take. Do the same thing. This isn't as as hard as the triangles, okay? Let's see. Let's do this one goes here, this one goes here. Okay, seams have got to be opposite, okay? So you're going to press one seam this way and one seam this way. Give it a nice starch. And one seam this way. And if you don't give it a little stretch sometimes, you don't want to pull it too hard, you'll accidentally iron over more than 1/4 of an inch, okay? Now what are we going to do? We're going to line up the seams, okay? So we're going to do this. Let's do it this way. And the seams are opposite, and these are much easier to figure out, and I'm having a little, yep, that's not kind of ironed over on that one a little bit. So you want to make sure, even a little 1/8 of an inch, I mean, if you keep doing it, the whole quilt's going to be off, right? So just make sure it's nice and flat. You haven't accidentally. Okay, so let's put this on top of here. We're going to line that one so this seam is laying right to the right of that other seam, right? Okay. Nice and flat. Take your pins. Pin what first? We're going to pin the seam first. Seam first, right there. Okay. And we are going to be sewing on this side. Okay, so your pins go there. Oh, nice and flat. Okay, let's do it this way. There you go. Okay, and that's how you do the triangle and the block.